Hello, everyone, and welcome. 8 months after immigration enforcement raids began in Los Angeles, small businesses across the county continue to navigate the economic and emotional consequences. Last year, I spoke with Jairo Parra, the creator of Small Guy on Main Street, about what he was seeing in those early weeks as the fear of ICE raids affected businesses throughout the city, especially those businesses who are independently owned. Today, we're speaking to Jairo again to understand how businesses have adapted, what has changed, and what the long term impact of the raids are. Jairo, thanks for being here. It's nice to speak with you again.
Hey, glad to be here.
Great. So, first of all, for those who are not familiar, tell us about Small Guy on Main Street. What is the channel for, or and what got you interested in doing it?
So the channel is for and dedicated for small businesses in the local community, which I do LA County, and more specifically in the Southeast Los Angeles area. And what got me into it, the origin was that I would talk to other small business owners and just a curious mind, and I will tell them, hey, how you get to this point, how you launch your business, and how did everything come about, right? And the answers were so simple when I would overthink it, and I would think it's much more difficult, but they didn't need anything else but just them believing in themselves, and they went ahead and launched it. So that got me just to thinking, and I was like, what I could do is create a page, right, dedicated and sharing small business stories. Because I believe all small business owners are unique, and they all have a special and unique story to tell. And events, right? Whatever events any small business has going on in the community, I try to cover it and show it, for everyone to see, because I strongly believe that the small business community is underserved and underrecognized, and they're fighting a big fight.
Let's reflect on the raids that have been happening since June of last year. Because, like I said, we spoke around that time and everything was just fresh. Like everything was just happening at that moment. Looking back on those first weeks compared to the situation now, what's the biggest change that you've seen in the day to day life of small businesses?
Overall, the biggest change is just I'm gonna say behavior of the customer, and not to go too deep into it because it's probably needs a greater research, but is just their shopping habits. They visit less often to get beauty salons, or they buy just less items. It's just they slow down on and what was before.
So let's see. So is it like you said less beauty salons? So like less what's a good way to say it? So like self-pampering kind of services, things like that, and more necessities, because that was something that you said in the beginning. People would just go out and just get the bare necessities. You know what I'm saying? Is that what you're saying right now?
No, well, oh yes, at that moment it was only for what they needed. So reduction across the board was low through to all small businesses. Um, Now they have came out. More people are coming out, and I think after a few months they learn how to navigate it themselves, right? The situation, but in the sense, like if it was in beauty and pampering, the self care will be just less often than it was before, minimizing the outdoor activities, and of course I that is still a case by case, because sadly there are areas that are much more that were more impacted than others. So depending where you're at, they some may feel it a lot more.
Because you've been covering this, not necessarily the race, but you've been trying to feature small businesses on your channel and just showing what kind of products they have, what the services they provide, and everything. um from then until now, how has your coverage of small businesses in the LA area changed?
Before before the raids, it was about showcasing. It really was. It was primarily about showcasing the small business, right? Introduce it to the audience, to the public, to the masses. But as the raids occurred and went on, I pivoted, and I shared how they're being impacted, and what is really going on, because there's so much out there, in information and news, that they don't get to see, the local small business, how bad is being impacted. I still try to showcase them, because it's still part of the promotion of this small business in this area. But it did change, of trying to let people know how they have been hit and impacted, and if they are suffering, just to let people recognize that.
So I'm going to throw out some numbers to you, just to get just so that everyone gets a view of the economic impact that these raids have had. Now, a survey conducted by the LA County Department of Economic Opportunity, the survey that they put out, and I'm going to put a link in the description for that. They found in this survey that 82% of businesses that they surveyed experienced a negative impact from the raids last year, and that 44% of the businesses surveyed, said they lost more than half of their normal revenue. Over two-thirds of respondents said that they changed how they operated, from changing business hours to delaying, say, if they wanted to expand, into a different space, they delayed those developments. Meanwhile, other businesses said that they altered their businesses altogether, and some had trouble getting supplies and services from vendors. And this, like I said, I will provide a link to that survey in the description. The immigration raids have cost more than $1 billion in economic activity. And finally, economists estimate that the raids created about a 0.25% drop on the county's gross domestic product, or GDP. Now, that sounds like a small amount, but because it's applied to the entire LA economy, which is roughly about $700 billion, it represents that 0.25% represents well over $1 billion in lost activity. So, the impact of the raids is definitely there. Now, taking all this data into account, how closely do you think that this matches what you've been seeing and hearing from the owners that you feature on Small Guy on the Main Street?
I don't think that based on the first survey by the Los Angeles Economic Development Committee or Corporation, a nonprofit, I don't think it represents, the area that I do cover. I think this area was impacted far greater than that. This is a Southeast Los Angeles is a very high Latino population, and which is one the targeted areas for ICE and um, um, Homeland Security presence. Um, of course, they cover the county. They cover West LA to Beverly Hills or South Bay, other areas that might not have seen a single truck. But I would say that when I spoke to them when it was just happening in June of last year, uh, majority of them, it was between 40 to 60% in revenue drop, right at that time. Um, Now, when I did talk to a few, and they said that it has gotten better, that it has improved, but we we could say that not everybody's experiencing the same recovery. One of the businesses that I did talk to in the beginning last year, Um, I went to go visit them, or I attempted to go visit them, and they had closed the doors. They shut down their business. And when I did talk to them in the summer of last year, they told me that, they were in Boyle Heights, um, and they told me that it was, ICE activity was, presence was very high. They had, took, I think, one of her, neighbors, but not in the business, but of her, residential area, and that's the last time we spoke. And as I try to get more information now, they closed the doors, and, she had a party, a flower party rental business, and, it's sad to say that, you know she couldn't see anything positive or positive outcome. But now, overall, has improved. um it has changed so far. So far has just changed, how people go shopping. They buy single items, they buy less, but they are out there. um there is improvement, and yes, I would say it was a great impact to the local economy. I think every city in Southeast Los Angeles might have felt some way and somehow, um that the loss of revenue. But overall, right now, there's optimism out there.
I'm just curious how far have you gone in LA County? Like what are like the most north, more south, east, west that you've gone?
So from, East LA down to Long Beach, Paramount area. So South Central to Pico Rivera, South Central Pico Rivera. So it's pretty much, southeast, everything that is southeast, including East Los. Um, that's those are the area that I'm getting feedback from.
Okay. Now, I wanted to ask you, is there an industry that has been affected more than another?
One small business told me, this is a different, party rental, business, and they said they are hit very hard because they find themselves in the industry of not being a necessity, but more of a luxury. So those that are non-necessities, I think, will still, the customers might think twice about purchasing. And in her, I would say, in her, shoes, um, while you're throwing a party, that's usually a good large sum of money. And when things are up in the air, if anything might happen to a family member, or themselves, they might think twice. Or, she said that, she did say that they are doing last minute orders instead of, booking months ahead. They're literally booking 2 or 1 single week ahead. So I think it's just whatever they don't find, um, as a necessity.
So, non-essential services, non-essential businesses are not being I've seen a drop as opposed to other types of businesses, correct?
Yes, yes. So not everybody's feeling the same, but yes.
So you also conducted your own survey to get feedback from businesses in the LA area. I wanted to ask, what trends have you noticed from your survey, about how small businesses are dealing with revenue drops and changes in customer behavior after the 8 months?
I did ask a particular question, like that in the survey. Um, and this, I think, is one of the original problems that small businesses have faced and still face, is that, how not how do they afford it, but how do they put themselves out there. um a, a lot of small businesses do not generate a large amount of revenue. um and one of the things that always hurts them is their own marketing, which, it's always been a problem, and it's still a problem, because, they say in the survey, that how have they changed their own methods of trying to stay afloat, and they say they really have not changed anything. And that could be just because a lack of funds and are limited of any other resources in that sense. But um, and some, depending the type of business, um, went to hosting pop-ups, even though they have a brick and mortar. um, but if people weren't coming out, I believe she went to them and sold her clothes at pop-ups. So it's not it's not a I'm gonna say it's not even, or I didn't get a solid response all across the board of if they are changing the same way. Is I think it's just what they may have as experience, or what options they may be um, they may have themselves. But yeah, they did not necessarily change a lot, and I think it's because they were still trying to find how they're gonna get you know paid this week or next week.
I'm just curious. There's a lot of swap meets in the LA area. I mean, there's a lot of them. Have you looked at them? What have they said?
No, I did not visit. The nearest one to me is Paramount Swap Meet. It's really known in the Southeast LA area. I did talk to one, and this was in the beginning. This was the summer, and they were out there trying. But I do have video footage of how bad they were impacted in that swap meet themselves. It was and swap meets, they have spaces, right? They have spaces with numbers. I'm gonna say at its lowest, I want to say it was probably 15 to 20% at capacity, when it should have been, maybe 80, 85, because I don't know if it ever gets to 100. Now it has got busier. There are people out. They host events Sundays, and then there's people out. So there has been um, people coming out, but I have lately, I did not get information from them.
How has the community support evolved over time? Um, you said, obviously customers are changing their buying patterns and their buying habits. But still, are there customers who are rallying around certain businesses? I mean, what has been, aside from the shopping habits, what has been the response from the community?
I think, I mean, one of the greatest things, there's probably many more that I don't see or has catch my attention, but the community has came together in such a beautiful manner. I mean, there are so many groups, so many um, activists, so many nonprofits that are helping community members and small businesses. Uh, it's been it's been lovely to see. It has been. One of the most recent ones that I did see, and this has to come from the small business itself. If they could find it, the courage to be verbal about how they're going, I think people would relate to them, people will accept them, people will understand that, but they have to do it themselves. And this small business, it was a coffee shop, I think in East Los. They were struggling, and they said they were going to close doors, and the community came together and had what they call a buyout, which people go and until everything they have sells out, right? So for the day, so that has been a beautiful thing, where the community members come in to support a small business and prevent that from happening. But I think it always has to originate from the the small business, the person that's going through whatever struggle. They have to be verbal and come out, because it's difficult if somebody else says it on their behalf. But I did witness that, and I think it was beautiful.
Do the buyouts help out the businesses?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I believe the goal, first and foremost, is go and spend money there, right? Uh, it could have a surplus of 100 people. The goal is to make sure they get everything they have bought out for the day. And second will be recognition, right? Get publicity. If one person who went, post them and have their small group follow that business, it could have a long term positive impact. But yeah, the goal is to publicity and help them out. Hopefully, short term with the buyout, and long term by having more people follow them.
What stories from the past few months have stuck with you as far as moments that capture the reality more so than a statistic can?
And I'm thinking, I'm trying to think of one that has stood out more. Um, I can't put my finger on one, but the best I can give you right now on the top of my head is just that the community just coming together, the community joining the struggle of whoever their neighbor or the small business that's in their community, just helping them out. That overall, I seen that grow and grow and grow, and that's the best impact I think um, I have seen and experienced.
So then now I wanted to ask you, how has running your vlogs, Small Guy on Main Street, changed during the raids? Are you covering uh are there different kinds of stories that you're covering, or yeah, basically, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So it was covering different stories. Um, it was covering how the small business is directly being impacted by the ICE presence in their communities. En Los Ángeles, ¿cómo ha mirado, si ha mirado una diferencia en la gente que viene o en las ventas que tiene, hace comparación, si puede, en mayo?
Sí, en realidad todo esto ha sido un fracaso, sí ha bajado mucho las ventas, nuestra gente está asustada pues y sí ha bajado bastante, un 70-80%, muy despacio.
Wow, eso es muy grave. Sí, muchos me han dicho, en realidad, muchos me han dicho que ha sido, por lo menos, han sentido 50% por lo menos, ¿verdad? Depende. Pero inmediatamente esas 3 semanas ha sido igual seguidas.
Sí, seguido, sí. Apenas hoy, pues en estos días ha mejorado un poquito, pero no como antes. Sí ha habido mucha baja en las ventas.
But overall, it has gotten a little more difficult. That there, it's always been difficult to try to get them to talk. Right, one of the main parts of what I do is to record them. Right, because if there's anybody that could speak and vouch for their own business, is the owner themselves, and that did get much more difficult. Um, because I think in some instances they wanted to keep just a low profile, and second, again, I don't think they want to risk saying anything that they didn't mean or could be, anything accidental. Um, but because when I try to have them as a podcast guest, um, you know, like this recording, it takes a moment. We talk, we conversate, but it went down. The willingness to come on camera. It just it went down. But I try to do what I can and go show up. There has been small businesses that have opened as well, so so that could be a positive outlook. But yeah, it has changed. So I'm also trying to gather information, and navigate it.
What do you feel that your audience is most eager to understand, whether it's about small businesses in the LA area or just about what's happening in general?
I think now they're somewhat past the point of expressing that small businesses are suffering. But depending, even though some might may still be, and I'm still trying to search for those. I'm still trying to get more volunteers to come on, but it serves two things. I just try to put information out that serves the small business, and also put information out that serves just the general public. When you have those two you're trying to please, you do create different content styles. um, but I think always is whatever can help the small business owner improve, and in whatever method, if it's customer service, revenue, being more efficient, or just navigating content itself. But I try to always put more information for the small business. That's the who I'm attempting to serve.
Do you do this by yourself or do you work with others in this?
So far as by myself.
How challenging is that?
Really, really, really challenging. I do. I have to take breaks. I have to take some weeks off without trying to do anything, because it does get overwhelming, for the family, for myself. But I know that I know I need to be out there. There's a lot of great stories that need to be told. So it's something that I like doing, but it's difficult.
What responsibility do you feel in documenting, whether it be small businesses or just this particular moment in the city's history?
If there's anything that comes out of this, is that at least somebody was there talking to small business owners directly. Um, Somebody was there giving them the opportunity to speak, and say what they had something to say. Right. I don't think um, they get many opportunities for media coverage, unless a burglary happens, or fire happens, or something devastating. But I hope down the line, they get the publicity and recognition, and they get noticed somehow.
When did you start doing this?
What are we, 25? Are we 26? 20, yeah, 22, 2022.
So this has been going on for a while now. This has been 4 years.
Yeah, yeah, but I I did I did change from one thing to another, because all this technology was rather new. It was rather new, right? Trying to learn podcasting, you have to understand how a good audio recording works and video works, and try to put it all together, and then you have to edit. And then um, when I think I got a good handle on that, I went into trying to produce good content, or better content in that sense. Because if we understand anything, has been that video in the social media world is king. So so it has been a great learning experience through many uh, fields that I really never touched before. And keeps it new. It keeps it new, right? So I could do podcasting, uh, videography, photography. Not the best yet, but I do plan to get better and better every day.
Going back to the main topic, looking down the line, um, is there any way to gauge what concerns business owners the most about the next few months?
The best way, the best way to do is try to be there with them, talk to them, have a human connection. I think is the best way you could get any kind of activity or interaction. Because if we do, if I do attempt to um, try to navigate this just through text or social media, there's a disconnection, right? We don't have the human connection there, I believe. So for 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 anybody to really understand and know is first and foremost meeting in person and taking the time to know how everything is really going. And this um, again is could be different per industry depending what city they're at as well. But the best way to try to get this is being there for them as a human.
Given the rate and the pacing that the raids have been taking place, or the frequency that they've been happening, or not, depending. Um, I'm curious to know, what do you personally think the LA small business landscape will look like a year from now?
That's a very good question. I think for the local area is if it's if knowing if there's gonna be uh, in any way, shape, or form ICE presence or any kind of immigration enforcement activities by then. Um, and I think we don't have the answer for that. Um, if we were to assume that it would stop, you know, or it would definitely decline, significantly decline, um, I would say it will be a very positive outcome. Um, but it depends what is going on locally in the states or in the county to really say.
So we've been covering quite a lot here. Is there anything else that you want to say that you feel maybe needs to be mentioned or hasn't been mentioned that everyone should know about the situation, or just LA small businesses in general, or maybe even anything in related to what we've been talking about?
No, I mean the only thing I could add on is that if anybody, I mean, most cases we all shop in some small businesses. Um, it's just to get to know their situation. You know, if the small business owner is there and you have a chance, to conversate with them, just get to know the situation because we really don't know how everyone is doing, depending what state you're in or what city you're in. We don't know. So if there's anything, just conversate, see, try to get a feel for what's going on in their, you know, industry or business, and hopefully we can help. But I don't think people ask enough to small business owners of how they're doing, so to speak. But I think they'll be willing to talk if people are looking out for them too.
I have one final question. Um, I'm in Utah. You are in California. I'm in Salt Lake City. You are in Los Angeles. This will be available to everybody in the country. What kind of an example, or what do you hope would be a takeaway for somebody, whether they be here in Utah or Chicago, Albuquerque, it doesn't matter. What sort of a takeaway do you hope people get from the resilience of small businesses and community members in the LA area from what's been happening and helping support small businesses?
We we are very strong. Just residents of any community. If we could all join together in a sense, and make the impacts that we really do want to see change. Because I think a lot of times we talk about certain things we want to change but fail to act, because acting takes a lot of energy, time, and effort. um, but small operating a small business is no easy task, by no means. um, a lot of them could be facing closure every month depending on how revenue is. But as a community, we can make changes, and we could always, in a way, somehow, you know, help them, and they could also help us, because a lot of small businesses are community members, and a lot of small businesses do um, fundraisers, and some of them, provide funds to local sports, for schools. So I think, us, just as residents and small business owners, we can make a lot of great things happen. But it's just, we gotta find the way to make it all connect.
Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Jairo Parra, creator of the vlog Small Guy on Main Street. You can find it on Instagram and TikTok. And we've been talking with him on the economic impact of the immigration raids on LA's economy. Thank you so much, Jairo, for being here and for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
It was a pleasure.